I'm not sure what's happening with him. Here, and then we're doing this side. We're doing here. They're gonna come over this way. We just hand this. Give them the pants. And it's that way I know. I know that's the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the meantime, I'm going to sit down. Is that okay?
That's going to be a problem. Yeah.
Where's the wind's not coming?
Is there a way we can secure it?
Let me
Or maybe move it over?
get some tape.
You want it in the picture?
I wanted it in the picture and it's tied to this ring. But let me tell him to get started. Get to start the live stream.
Let me get rid of it. We're going to get started in 1 minute. Okay, good evening. I'm Dr. Stuart Markowitz, Senior Associate Dean for Student Affairs, and it is truly a pleasure to be here as we celebrate our first hybrid Gold Humanism Honor Society induction and award ceremony. Our medical school provides an innovative curriculum that integrates cutting-edge, high-tech, and evidence-based medicine with a focus on humanism in medicine. We emphasize the importance of the patient and family-centered care and effective open communication. As educators, healers, and scientists, we strive to develop the most effective tools and vehicles to help nurture our students on the art of establishing compassionate, respectful, and caring relationships with patients. And I have to say for a minute, just a little tiny bit about Dr. Arnold Gold, who was the founder of the Gold Humanism Honor Society. Dr. Gold passed away 2 years ago. Fortunately for me, I got to know him over the years, mostly from the AAMC meetings. And my wife and I became friends with him and his wife. He was an incredible man. He was a pediatric neurologist who worked at Columbia University hospitals. And the comment I always heard from people that worked with him was they usually had to sit on the floor when they met with him because he was sitting on the floor playing with his patients. But his belief was that if you know everything there is to know about medicine, that still does not make you a great physician. But it is the art of humanism and patient-centered care that makes you the whole physician. And he was truly that kind of man. And we honor him every time we give these awards. And I can't say enough about what this man was like. So we're going to start by talking about our students here. And before we do that, we're going to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Peter Frank Avercue. Dr. Peter Avercue is a pediatrician. He's a diplomate of the American Board of Pediatrics and a fellow of the American Academy of Pediatrics. After attending the Bronx High School of Science, Dr. Avercue was accepted into an accelerated 7-year combined BS-MD program at the Sophie Davis School of Biomedical Education at the City College of New York, currently the City University of New York School of Medicine. He completed his 2 clinical years of medical school at the Albany Medical College of New York. He then did his residency in peds at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine and Montefiore Medical Center in New York. After completing his residency, Dr. Avercue moved to Boca Raton, was in private practice for 20 years in this community, serving patients from as far away as Stewart to the north and Miami to the south. In 2012, he joined the faculty of the Charles E. Schmidt College of Medicine as an assistant professor of clinical biomedical science. Dr. Avercue is a co-director of the Foundations of Medicine course. He directs the service learning projects, the synthesis and transition course, and the newborn nursery clinical experience. Dr. Avercue is a learning community advisor to our medical students. He's also on the Interprofessional Education Development Sessions Committee and the YMCA Diabetes Prevention Program Advisory Board. After being a Boy Scout for 10 years, Dr. Avercue stayed with the same troop as an assistant scoutmaster, volunteering his time for 8 years. He's also the chairman of the advisory board of the PKO Crete, an orphanage for girls in Greece. He has mentored pre-medical and medical students for almost 30 years, and his main goal is to train our medical students to be excellent clinicians and compassionate doctors. I'm truly proud to call up Dr. Peter Avercue.
Thank you, Dr. Markowitz. Welcome, everyone. Nice to see everyone here. I usually say I don't want to be a member of any club that would have me as a member, but I guess I'll make an exception this time. So let me take you back to last year when this event was supposed to happen right before the pandemic hit. When Dr. Markowitz called to tell me the good news that I was being inducted into the Gold Humanism Society, I asked him, is there anything I need to do between now and then? He said, I'm going to need you to lay low and behave yourself for the next couple months until the ceremony. I said, the next couple months? I was hoping you were going to say starting the afternoon of the ceremony. About a month before the event was supposed to take place, I run into Dr. Markowitz again, and he tells me he's not going to be at the induction ceremony. I said, why not? He said, I'm leaving a few days before for a cruise. I said, wait a minute. I've been to every single one of these ceremonies from day one, and you were at all of them and inducted everybody in. And now that it's my turn, you're getting out of town? He said, I said, plus with the coronavirus, did you not hear about all these cruise ships that are getting passengers that are getting stranded in quarantine for 14 days on the ships? He said, that's a less risky choice. A few weeks later, I run into Dr. Markowitz again, and he said, I'm going to be there to induct you. I said, really? Oh, thank you so much. That means so much to me. He said, it's not about you. It's about the coronavirus. Things have gotten worse. I canceled my cruise. So first, I want to say a few words about the service learning projects that I direct. So service learning is a structured learning experience that combines community service with planning, preparation, engagement, and reflection. Our medical students engaged in service learning provide community service in response to community identified concerns and learn about the context in which service is provided, the connection between their service and their academic coursework, and their roles as citizens. This past year, we partnered with 23 nonprofit organizations, and if not for the pandemic, it would have been 29 organizations. That's a new world's record for us. These organizations provide services to the elderly, to children with cancer and their families, to the disabled, to at-risk youth, to the homeless, to disadvantaged youth, etc. I wish I had time to tell you all the great stories I've heard over the last 7 years from our students, but I'll just tell you my one favorite stories, which probably most of you have heard, the students anyway. One year, there was a group of our students at Milagro Center. They work with disadvantaged and at-risk kids. And on their first day there, a young girl who was about 7 or 8 years old was asked by one of our female medical students if she would want to become a doctor one day. The girl smiled/laughed at that question and replied, "Girls don't become doctors, they become nurses." She thought our medical student was pulling her leg. But as the weeks went on, and this young girl saw our female med student, an excellent role model, show up every time with her white coat and her professional demeanor and teach the children interesting things about their bodies and interact with them. By the end of our students' time there, that young girl went up to our female medical student and said, "I want to become a doctor just like you." And isn't it interesting that this past year, for the first time ever in our country, there's now more female medical students than male medical students. Last year, the College of Medicine got reaccredited by the LCME for 8 years, which is the most years they grant before requiring a medical school to become reaccredited again. I know some of you who have heard this story, but for the benefit, I think, of the ones that didn't hear it, let me tell you what happened when we had our mock LCME visit to prepare us for the real deal. So they were there to put us through all the rigors of an LCME visit so we could improve on our mistakes. The 3 visitors, who were all associate or assistant deans at their respective medical schools, sat on one side of the table, of the conference table, and the faculty, my session, about 8 faculty were on the other side. Now, I wasn't aware that these visitors were coming to us from 3 of the top medical schools in the country. On the other side of the table, as I said, was me and about 8 other faculties. They were 3 people sitting, the 3-person panel, across from us, and were asking us all questions about our school. After a while, they turned their attention to me, and the first gentleman closest to me wanted to know about the service learning projects. And to let everyone here know, medical schools do not have to require service learning or community service. They just have to offer the students opportunities and time to do that. So I gave them the nuts and bolts of the program, and as I was talking, I started to feel more and more proud and confident of our accomplishments with the service learning project. So as I was concluding, with as much swagger as I could muster while still seated, I said, "And we are one of the few medical schools in the country that requires service learning." The gentleman across from me, totally unimpressed, didn't even pick his head up to look at me from scribbling notes. He says, we require it at our medical school." So I remarked, "Like I said, we are one of only 2 medical schools in the country that requires service learning." He points with his pen to the woman next to him. She says, "We require it at our school." So I remarked, "Like I said, we are only one of 3 medical schools in the country that requires service learning." He then points to the guy at the end, the 3rd person, and he says, "We require it too." So I remarked, "Like I said, we are the only medical school looking to make service learning optional." So just like you guys, everybody on my side of the table thought it was hilarious. The other side, not so much. I think it was wise that we had that mock visit, or we wouldn't be accredited today. The second and last thing I want to talk about, and the most important item on my speech agenda, is our students. I'll start with the students' first week with us. When I meet many of the parents and siblings of our students at the reception after the white coat ceremony, at the end of our conversation, I always thank the parents for letting us borrow their sons or daughters for the next 4 years. And I say, we will try not to mess them up too much, and see you in 4 years at graduation. I always enjoy meeting the parents and the siblings, not only in and of itself, but it provides a context to the student for me. I know where they're coming from in more ways than one. Once the semester begins, often when I'm talking with students, I like to refer to their parents or siblings or what small town or big city they are from, just to remind them that I know who they are, they cannot hide, and I'm keeping an eye on them for their family. I like seeing the surprised look on the students' faces when they don't think I would remember some information I gleaned from their parents or siblings about them, good or bad. I also get the sense from the parents that they were happy that we met and talked, and that they feel a little more comfortable dropping their son or daughter off at the school. I did want to mention one funny thing that happened at the white coat ceremony about 5 years ago. That year, there was a real tall student, and therefore, as he was getting up on the stage to be dressed with his white coat, he was getting a very long white coat, like myself, an attending's coat, not a medical student's coat, the shorter version that's usually about to your hip, like all the other students. So there were two faculty members sitting right in front of me in the audience, and they were surprised that this student was getting the long coat. They were going back and forth with each other for a few minutes. Why is he getting an attending's white coat? He should be getting a student's white coat. That's not right. What's going on? He shouldn't be wearing that long white coat. Finally, after listening to this for a while, I leaned forward between them and I said, it goes by MCAT score. I have been fortunate for the last 7 years or so to be one of the Learning Community Advisors, or LCAs. By the way, I did notice that half the students being inducted today are my LCA students. Coincidence? I think not. During orientation week for the new students every year, on the first day, Drs. Markowitz and Caceres asked the new M1s to stand up, introduce themselves, tell us what college they're coming from, and finally, an interesting fact about themselves. Oftentimes, we hear facts such as, quote, I'm the first person in my family to attend or graduate from college. I'm the first person in my family to go to medical school. The next day, when there is a meeting with the new M1s and they are introduced to their LCAs, the LCAs are asked to stand up like the students did the day before, introduce themselves, and tell the class an interesting thing about ourselves. When it's my turn, I stand up and say, hi, my name is Dr. Peter Avercue, and an interesting fact about me is that I'm the first person on either side of my family to be an LCA. For some reason, Drs. Markowitz and Caceres always seem to appreciate that one more than the students do. When people outside the school, or even in the school, ask me what is an LCA, I say it's a combination mentor / glorified high school guidance counselor. When people ask me how I like my job, my response is always, I love my job. And when they ask why, I always blame the students. Last night, I wanted to try and figure out what are the chances for an applicant to our school to gain admission. So I located my calculus book, dusted the cobwebs off, took the plastic off. I see some of you can relate. All right. Mum's the word. I did some calculations, and then I carried the one and concluded that since in an average year, about 3,800 students apply for 64 spots, that's less than a 2% acceptance rate. And that's competing against some of the brightest kids in the country. That's not just the general population. Our students are smart, professional. Okay, some of them are. Motivated, begging to be here, coming from all over the country, paying a lot of money to be here, and grateful and appreciative of anything I teach them. At least I know that. Because we're a small school of only 64 students per year, and I'm not even good with names, I eventually learn everybody's names as the weeks and months go by. Granted, I know all the names, but I don't always match them up to the right person. But seriously, you're a person with a name here, not a number. We greet each other in the hall and smile or laugh as we pass each other. I think of us as one big happy family. Being around medical students is just great for me. It's like I'm reliving my medical school years, but in a good way. The two most important days for me here are also two of the most important days of the students' lives, whether they realize it or not, match day and graduation. I have yet to miss one of these events, starting with the first year we had graduates. On match day, I'm so proud and happy to watch the students opening their envelopes with excitement and seeing their happiness, usually. And at graduation, watching them climb up the steps as their name is being announced, as if they were climbing over all the hard work, sacrifice, and dedication to get to that point, also known as the blood, sweat, and tears. They walk to the front of the stage, they get hooded, and then handed that coveted MD degree diploma and walk off the stage with such poise and confidence as if they're walking into a new world where from here on in, most will not be arrested for impersonating a doctor. I'm often asked by our students, when did I decide to be a doctor and why a pediatrician? Around 10 to 11 years old, I decided to become a pediatrician. I never thought I want to become a doctor and then I'll have to decide what specialty to do later. It was always a pediatrician. If I couldn't be a pediatrician, I didn't want to be a doctor. The two reasons why a pediatrician, one was because I love kids, and the other reason is the influence of my own pediatrician, who I looked up to from a young age. And no matter what time my appointment was, when I went there with my mom, he would only see me as the last patient of either the morning or the afternoon block, so that we could sit and talk about how I'm doing in school, what I'm doing in school, talk about medicine, and what he recommends I do and don't do. I didn't mind sitting for a couple hours in the waiting room, watching kids that came after me being seen before me, because I knew it was going to be worth it to be able to sit and talk for 30 minutes to an hour with my pediatrician about something other than my yearly checkup or an illness I had. One day I was so happy that it was time for my next appointment, even though I knew it was for a checkup and that I was due for a vaccine and some blood work, because that's the day I was going to finally tell him that I wanted to become a pediatrician, and I couldn't wait to see the look on his face and his joy. I was bursting at the seams with excitement. When I finally told him that I wanted to become a pediatrician, just like him, he looked at me with a quarter smile and said, "What are you, stupid?" I suffered a minor setback on my journey to pediatrics that day, but I would be undeterred. After many years of private practice pediatrics, I finally understood what he meant that day. That's why now when a medical student tells me they want to become a pediatrician, and to cause them a little less trauma that I endured, I look at them with a three-quarter smile and say, "What are you, stupid?" I don't think anybody knows this, but starting with the second class to be admitted to this school, and for the next 5 years of mine, I thought that was a weird and unbelievable streak. Unfortunately, the streak ended a few years ago. In addition to these medical students, I've had several dozens of former patients that have graduated or are currently attending other medical schools around the country. My own pediatrician and myself notwithstanding, nothing makes a pediatrician more proud than to have a former patient enter the field of medicine, and especially pediatrics. I'm not going to lie and say that I was the main influence for all of them deciding to become a doctor, or specifically a pediatrician in the case of a handful of them, because I wasn't. But I will say that despite my best efforts, they were not deterred in becoming a physician, and even worse, a pediatrician. For the M4 class, it's been a see you grow over the last 4 years. It's a real joy for me whenever I see you around the school or we run into each other at the hospital, as long as it's not in the parking lot. In fact, there are a handful of faculty that when we talk amongst ourselves, we refer to you as the kids. I remember talking with one of the new faculty members a few years back, and she said, "The kids." "Oh, I'm sorry, I mean the medical students." And I said, "Don't correct yourself, I never do." I refer to them as the kids because I feel like each and every one of them is my kid, and I am a proud dad just watching them growing and maturing into physicians. Last year, we had a graduate that was just a couple years younger than me. I still considered her one of the kids, and I even told her so. She thought it was funny. She knew and understood where I was coming from and actually appreciated it. Some people say we shouldn't think of them as kids. We shouldn't coddle them. Well, I never coddle them. And just to be clear, I don't think of them as kids. I think of them as my kids. I will be their biggest cheerleader when they're working hard to reach their potential in everything that makes for a great doctor in person. And I also inform them of my disapproval when they are not. When the M4s do their academic rotation with us, and especially when they're with me during advanced clinical skills, I am always so impressed with them. And I can't believe how much they've learned and advanced, both in their medical knowledge and their clinical reasoning, as well as in their professionalism. I am always in awe over their intelligence and how accomplished and polished they are. They are well on their way to filling those big doctor shoes. That's why at that point, I think of them as colleagues and no longer medical students. This probably goes against the Gold Humanism Society values, but there's also a bit of a selfish reason for me as to why I'm at the medical school. I wanted to pass along to the next generation of doctors any little knowledge I acquired over the years. For example, teaching clinical skills to the M1s, which is my favorite thing I do here, because I'm working with a blank palette and I'm the artist. Many of the students have never taken a pulse before, never mind the blood pressure and trying to make heads or tails of the cuff, or have never used a stethoscope, and to see the excitement on their face when they put it on correctly and actually hear things on the other side for the first time is priceless. To see the confusion on their face when they first pick up an otoscope, or the horror when they first meet an ophthalmoscope, is definitely worth the price of admission. To be fortunate enough to be able to teach them all the exam maneuvers, that is more fun than a human should be allowed to have. Unless someone teaches them a better way to examine someone, they are stuck with the way I taught them, and as a whole, they will be examining hundreds of thousands of patients with the Avercue method throughout their 30 to 40-year career. And if they teach a medical student, intern, or resident that what I taught them, then I live on in the generation after that, and so on. You are my legacy in medicine. Don't mess it up. I want to congratulate you again for matching in a residency program last week, wherever you matched around the country in whatever specialty, even if it wasn't the only one that truly matters, pediatrics. I want you to remember a phrase that a classical Greek poet, Archilochus, coined almost 3,000 years ago that has been adopted by the United States Navy SEALs. Under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training. I'll say it again. Under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training. So the Navy SEALs commit to training nearly every scenario imaginable under all conditions, and so should you. I know you will do lifelong learning activities, but the main thing that is going to keep you going over your 30 to 40-year career, and something that there is no substitute for, is your training during those 3 to 7 years or so of residency. And you don't get a do-over. It's now or never. Give it all you got. So make the most out of it. Ask every question imaginable. Know your patients inside and out. Read everything about their diagnosis and fill any knowledge gaps you have. Learn as much as you can every day from as many patients as possible, and not just your own. I know they have less work hours per week in residency nowadays, but unless a security guard is literally throwing you out of the hospital at 5, if there is an opportunity to do so. If it's a reasonable amount of time to wait before your patient comes back to you in the ICU from open heart surgery, wait for them to return to the floor and learn what happens when you get them back. If you send someone down to radiology for an X-ray, ultrasound, CAT scan, or MRI, if possible, go down with them and learn how the test is done, what the patient is put through, and then go to the radiologist and sit with them and ask if they could read the study with you and point out some key things and how they made the diagnosis, what's normal, what's abnormal. If you ordered labs, same thing. If after you gave IV fluid for someone who was dehydrated, see how the IV resuscitation, fluid resuscitation worked, how well it worked, how quickly it worked or didn't work enough or at all, and what needed to be done next. Same thing if you ordered a follow-up CBC, CRP, or SED rate on a patient with a sepsis that you gave stat antibiotics to. I know you will be overworked in residency, but try to find time in your hectic schedule to spend a few minutes sitting at the bedside of your patients, just to talk to the patient and or their family about who they are, where they are coming from, and where do they want to go. What are their concerns and fears about their diagnosis or being in the hospital? Always remember one of my favorite quotes, and unfortunately very true: a hospital is no place for sick people. Don't think of residency as the last hurdle you have to jump over to do what you've always wanted to do, or as cheap labor for the hospital, doing the hospital a favor. It is an investment in your career and your future. Every second you spend there, it is an investment in you and all the patients you will encounter in your career. You will never get a better return on your investment, and you will be paid dividends on that investment forever. In closing, you can't believe how proud I am of all of you, and I wish you all nothing but the best in your careers and your personal lives, which means, to me, means being happy. As I said earlier, I'm not the best when it comes to remembering names, but I will remember all your faces, and all of our interactions forever. I know that things are never the same with your friends, acquaintances, coworkers, teachers, mentors, once you leave a school or a job. But if you how you're doing, where you are, what you're doing, I will always love to hear from you. One of the things I really cherish, the icing on the cake here for me, is that several of our graduates over the years have stayed in touch with me through their residency and beyond, and that they now consider me a friend and vice versa. Both they and I always promise and look forward to meeting up again with each other when either of us is in the other's natural habitat. And as for the ones that were my former patients, and luckily they are in various specialties and not just pediatrics, provide me with free medical care indefinitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Avercue. It was terrific, as I knew it would be. So moving on, I'm delighted to recognize 3 residents that will receive the Humanism and Excellence in Teaching Award, what we call HETA, H-E-T-A, Humanism and Excellence in Teaching Award, that recognizes outstanding humanistic teaching residents by their students. Their receipt of this national award is a testimony to the exceptional teaching skills and compassionate treatment of patients, family, students, and colleagues. When a resident receives this award, they are automatically inducted into the Gold Humanism Honor Society. Dr. Allegra Condiotti is already a member, so we will induct Dr. Ferrone and Dr. Artias today. I would now like to call up the Humanism and Excellence in Teaching Award recipients and Gold Humanism Honor Society resident inductees to receive their lapel pin. First, I'd like to call up Dr. Jennifer Caceres, my associate in student affairs, to help hand out the pins to the residents. Let me skip over that and say that we're going to go through it in order. First is Dr. Allegra Condiotti. Dr. Adrian Artiles, and Dr. AJ Ferrone. Thank you all. Thank you, residents, for playing a critical role in the education of our students. And soon we're going to call you back up to do the Gold Humanism Honor Society oath. So now it's my pleasure to present the Leonard Tao Humanism in Medicine Awards. Leonard Tao Humanism in Medicine Awards recognizes graduating students and faculty who demonstrate both clinical excellence and outstanding compassion in the delivery of care, who show respect for patients, their families, and healthcare colleagues. I believe this award belongs to individuals who have served in our community, who are universally loved by our medical school family, and to physicians and medical students whose commitment to patient care is unwavering. And for all those reasons, the following individuals will receive that award this year. It's my pleasure to present this year's Leonard Tao Humanism in Medicine Faculty Award to Dr. Emmanuel Isaac and Dr. Lisa Clayton. And Dr. Clayton, who I'm so excited has received this award, embodies what the Leonard Tao Humanism in Medicine Award is all about. Congratulations. So now we're going to present this year's Leonard Tao Humanism. And in this case, it goes to Patricia Lewis. Let me talk about her while she's getting pinned. Patricia is a first-generation Haitian immigrant and is a Palm Beach County native. She's the first in her family to receive a medical doctorate degree, and she'll be starting her residency this July in internal medicine. As a medical student, she's been a valuable member of her healthcare team and has frequently been relied on as a Haitian Creole speaker to close the gap on care provided patients who have inadequate access to language resources in the healthcare setting. Additionally, Patricia has been committed to serving others outside the hospital. She's demonstrated this through her work with the HCOP program, Healthcare Careers Outreach Program, and the T. Leroy Jefferson Medical Society, where she prepared underserved and underrepresented students for future careers in medicine and health services. She also served as a leader in developing and implementing the Partners in Equity and Empowerment curriculum at our College of Medicine, which aims to advance practical understanding of social determinants of health and integrate students into the broader Palm Beach County community. Patricia has embodied the principles of humanism throughout her education at the College of Medicine. As a person, clinician, and soon to be physician, very soon, she's truly deserving of the Leonard Tao Humanism in Medicine Award. And we'll call her back up in a little bit to also recite the oath. I'd now like to call up faculty and M4 inductees one at a time. As I call your name, please come up front with your family or friend to help pin you. They will pin you up front, and then you'll stay up front over here while the rest of the students come up. Once everyone has been pinned, we will all say the Gold Humanism Honor Society inductee oath together. So first to come up, Dr. Peter Avercue. And next, if you look at this screen, hopefully she's there because I can't see the screen, Dr. Joanna Draus, who is Associate Professor of Family Medicine, Associate Dean for Faculty Affairs, and the Associate Chair of the Integrated Medical Science Department. So she's joining us virtually, and I believe her husband is going to be pinning her and giving her the certificate. Good job, Brian. Very good. Okay. And now our student inductees, which we're so excited to have. Jordan Cohn, come up. Philip Qualling. Vihasa Gavada. Jude Jiraki. Carolyn Canup. Rihanna Lalani, who's joining us virtually. Vishnu Mupala. You can stay up here. Yeah. We have a few more students to bring up. And now Jacob Musinski, Rachel Silverberg, and Florence Young. And person next to you. Here's another one. Okay. Has everybody been pinned? Okay, so we are now, if we're ready, going to recite the oath. You can find the inductee oath on the back of the program. Does anybody else need a program up here to see it? You all have it? Okay. I don't have it. And we can get started. I pledge by all that I hold dear as a physician, I will care for my patients with compassion, respect, empathy, integrity, and clinical excellence. I will listen to my patients with my whole being. I will advocate for each patient as a unique individual. I will serve as a role model and mentor to promote humanism in healthcare. I will remember always the healing power of acts of caring. I will dedicate myself to joining with others to make healthcare optimal for all. Congratulations to our newest members of the Gold Humanism Honor Society. And we're going to take a group photo, I believe, right now. So stay up here and we'll do that. And then we are all set. Okay.
I'll say better with those of you guys when they're up here. Okay. I shouldn't have eaten that much. Join the ceremony. Oh, I got it. Go ahead. As long as I get some people. Love your pig rate. Yeah, I can feel myself. It's like my tearing. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Mark. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Philip.
Thank you.
Jordan. Florence.
Somebody had theirs.
Oh, yes, yes. I didn't know.
Do you have a pen?
Yes.
So thank you all for coming. We appreciate it.
You want to ask them to take another picture, but over there, so it's out of the eye.
Okay, recipients of the award, we need you over here for one last picture down here.
Make sure you grab.